1, go.
Okay, sorry about that. We had a snafu again with our online, so I'm going to have to start all over. I don't know where I stopped, but all of you that were tagged and tried to get on didn't find us. I hope you waited because we're back. All right, so let's begin in Revelations chapter 1. Okay, of Revelation, I'm in chapter 17, verse 1. Okay, and as I said earlier, if you've been a couple listening to me every Sunday, that and realize, Brother Ron, you were just in chapter 13. How come we're in chapter 17? We're in chapter 17 because I'm not going chronologically by chapter to chapter to chapter in every verse. That's not. I don't believe that's the correct way of understanding and studying Revelations, because Revelations itself breaks the time period up into 3.5 years and 3.5 years. The first 3.5 they call tribulation. The second 3.5 they call the Great Tribulation. Okay, why? Because it's going to get worse. Okay? In the first 3.5 years, we have certain things that go on. A quarter of all living things, man, everything that lives, animals, trees, grass, what's in the sea, a quarter of everything that lives dies. Okay, and the angel says to Paul, this is the what's he say?
To John or to Paul?
John. I'm sorry. The angel says to John, this is the beginning of woes, okay, or of travail. A quarter of everyone dies, and that's just the beginning. Yeah, it's going to get much worse in the next 3.5 years. But so that's what we're doing. We're studying that first 3.5. So we just learned in 13 about this false prophets coming and everything, and now it's going to explain or give an image of his worldwide. Remember, I said he's not in charge of a government thing. He's in charge of a religion that's going to become worldwide. Okay, and in verse 17, God's giving us an image of that and explaining what and where that is. Okay, so in verse 1 it says, "And there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters." Okay, that word is used spiritually, not physically. Okay, this whore, and we'll learn more about it as we go down, and I'll show you. "To whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication. The inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication." Her, it's a woman, okay, is how God's picturing this. She's a whore. And all the people of the earth are gathering and longing to be with the whore. I said earlier that I don't know why God uses women to describe something that's sinful. God uses it quite a lot in the Bible. I think he does it not because of women themselves. He does it because us as men, that's when we look upon the woman, the first place our thoughts go to is lust. Okay, so the first place we go to is something that's sinful. And so God uses that by giving us that image to express sin. Okay, and so we go on to verse 3. "So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, had 7 heads and 10 horns." Remember this beast? This was the beast we saw in 13, which is talking about the Antichrist and his government. Okay, and now this woman is sitting upon it. When somebody sits upon something, what's that mean? It means they're supporting it. When you're on a beast of burden, and if you were sitting on a mule going like as Mary was, okay, it supported her, so she didn't have to walk and went to Bethlehem with her husband. Okay, that's exactly what's going on here. She's sitting upon it. The Antichrist and his world organization, or whatever he's bringing into power when he comes to power, props this religious system up and holds it up, because that's why she's sitting upon it. And it has 7 heads and 10 horns. And remember, I said it's a world thing first, and it's the Antichrist, this beast. I said before that it's a world thing. It's the reincarnated Roman Empire. Okay. Now we'll get back more into this lesson here. We'll talk more about that, and I'll really show you exactly how it is the remade Roman Empire. Okay. So he carried away in the spirit, and she was on it. Verse 4. "And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. Okay. Golden cup here lets us know that, in her hand, lets us know that, first, that this is a wealthy church. Okay, it's going to be extremely wealthy. It's got a gold, she's carrying a golden chest in her hand. Most big religions we see in the world today are wealthy. Okay? We find that even in most religions, the religion itself is wealthy, but the parishioners, well, they're either medium or in the poor poverty. They're in the poor side. The Roman Catholic Church has more poor followers than it does anybody with wealth or money. Here in America, there's a lot of them that are normal and have wealth or money, but in the South America, they're highly Catholic. In Africa, in some places, they're highly Catholic, and the basic income of the people is almost nothing. I was lucky enough when I first got out of the military and came here to Florida to work for a packing plant that made the equipment that case packers and shrink wrapping equipment that goes on to put things together. You make the product and you want to put it in a case pack or put it in a shrink wrap kind of thing. They made the equipment that did that. And I went all over the world putting those systems in, installing them for people in places. 3 or 4 different places in South America, Colombia, Brazil, Venezuela. And then I also went to China, okay, doing this for them. And I realized real quick in South America what a big difference it is between the South Americans and Americans. Okay, their middle class is almost non-existent. Okay, you either have the very, very rich and then the poor. Okay, that's it. There is no real middle class because their economies aren't geared that way. And most of the people that are wealthy and in the upper class, they can trace their lineage all the way back to Spain. They're Spanish. The ones that are below that are Indian and Spanish mix, Indian alone. You understand what I mean? The rich families that had money didn't mingle with the Indians and become mixed race with them. They're still in control in the South America, and they'll always be in control until they get some freedom there. All right, I went off on a tangent there, verse 4. Let's go to verse 5. And upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. Okay, and I have here, remember, all idolatry, all religious form is rooted back in the Tower of Babel. That's why the Bible can say there's nothing new under the sun, Paul says. He also says in Thessalonians 1:7, let's turn there real quick. Back out of this, let's stay right in the New Testament. Let's come up here to Thessalonians, 2 Thessalonians 2:7.
1:7.
It's 1:7, I'm sorry, thank you. I like 2 though, too. That's actually supposed to be 2:7.
Okay.
Like I said. Where Paul says, remember that's 2 Thessalonians 2:7. For the mystery of iniquity doth already work. Only he who now letteth will let, until he be taken out of the way. This mystery, what it means is the iniquity, the sin, and all that's going on in the world. It already works. It's worked its way and been in mankind's dealings and what he does all the way back to the Tower of Babel. Okay? And when he says, he who letteth, it's the Holy Spirit that's here. And it's not that he lets it, it's that he doesn't hinder it. Okay? Not totally. The only hindrance he does is because his presence is here because we're here as saints. And our prayers, that's why it's important for us to be praying all the time for our country and our leaders and things of that nature, to keep that iniquity away from that and make sure that they're pure of heart and know God and realize that. Okay, that's what it's talking about here, and that's what's going on in the world today. When we get taken out and there's no more hindering of that, that's why you get the 7-year tribulation. That's why it just all breaks down and people resort to their basest personage, their basest instincts. They'll go follow them. Let's keep going here. Let's go to Acts 19 so we can look at that too. What I just said about basest instincts, that's really what I want to look at too. In Acts chapter 19 is where Paul and Silas are in Ephesus. Okay, and let's go down to verse 23. And the same time there arose no small stir about that way. Okay. Now we're coming in kind of right in the middle of the chapter here, but about that way, what way? What Paul's been teaching, the way of grace, and that you don't need idols anymore. We have a grace to go straight to Jesus Christ, our Savior, and we don't need anything else but that. Okay, so that's the stir about that way. That's what Paul's been preaching to Gentiles. Okay, and for a certain man named Demetrius, a silversmith, which made silver shrines for Diana. The biggest temple to Diana was at one time in Ephesus. Okay, and the silversmiths made images of Diana and sold them, and people would put them up in their houses as little places that they could bow and worship and pray to Diana for help and need, much like crosses are in people's homes today, Catholics, so that they can pray to the cross and everything else. This is what, and these men, of course, will find made their living doing this. Most of the figures, too, Diana was partially nude all the time, or was in an act of some sort of, alluring act she was in, which is the same thing of her priestesses of the day in Ephesus. Literally, it was almost the temple to Diana was basically a prostitution house. You paid money and you slept with the priestesses of Diana. Through that act, okay, Diana was glorified because she was supposed to be the goddess of love and all that. Okay, so there arose Demetrius the silversmith, okay, which made silver shrines for Diana, brought no small gain unto the craftsmen. Okay, in other words, it brought no small gain. They made their living making these sculptures. Okay, verse 24. For a certain man, verse 25. Okay, whom he called together with the workmen of like occupation. He got a bunch of the rest of them and says, Sirs, ye know that by this craft we have our wealth. In other words, they make a living on it. And those that were really good at it, good crafters, they were wealthy doing this. Okay. Moreover, you see here that not alone at Ephesus, but almost throughout all Asia, this Paul hath persuaded and turned much people, saying that they be no gods which are made with hands. So that not only this our craft is in danger to be set at naught, but also that the temple of the great goddess Diana should be despised, and her magnificence should be destroyed, whom all Asia and the world worshipped. Okay? It's getting bad. And you see what it does? These men eventually get Paul and Silas kicked out of Ephesus. They have to run for their lives. They're going to be put in jail. Okay? You see what happens when you try to attack an ungodly religious practice? Okay? This is exactly what's going to happen, even more, tenfold more, in the tribulation period, when this false religion comes on the scene and people start to say, I don't think I want to believe that. Can you imagine Muslims saying, well, maybe we do worship the same God as Christians, or maybe we do. And if they don't want to do it, they're going to be in the minority. Okay, those that try to stick straight to their own religion, they're going to be in the minority. Okay, remember in 13 we talked about them saying it isn't the Antichrist or even the false prophet that goes after them for not doing the things like worshiping the beast he sets up and praying to the beast so many times a day and doing things like not getting the mark and everything. Who's actually going to go after them? All the rest of us. Those that are zealous about it are going to say, you haven't been praying. Well, then you should be put to death. Okay? That's where it's coming from. It's coming from your own family members and neighbors. They're the ones that are going to come after you, not the actual authority. They can be pious and say, well, we didn't say to do that, but they, we have to listen to what they're saying. That's what's going to happen. Let's go back to Revelations. Chapter 17. And let's continue down to, let's get over this. 17:6. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints. Okay. That's a great part of the start of this verse. She gets enjoyment so much so that it's like she's drunk with the blood of the saints. In other words, those people that will not bend and have found Jesus Christ because of the 144,000, she's drunk with their blood. She's the one that's creating this. Remember I told you, this organization, this church, they're the ones that are going to start doing the things that, the work that the Antichrist wants done to get rid of people that will not submit. Okay? And as 6 says, she was drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. I don't like that word admiration as it's changed here. It's almost like he marveled. It was with a form of admiration, but awe, okay, as John looked at this. I think what he's trying to say there too is to see the marvel at the wealth and the pomp and circumstance and power that was given to this single religion. Okay, how quickly it comes up and how quickly it acquires all kinds of wealth and acquires all kinds of like I said, pomp and circumstances. That's why I believe it's going to be an offshoot of some kind of thing with the Roman Catholic Church, because the Roman Catholic Church has all of its big pomp and circumstances. Just last year, a year and a half ago, we saw a new pope, voted in by the cardinals. And of course, everybody that was anything to do with Catholicism was tried to get in there into the cathedral, or at the, just outside of it, what do they call that, Peter's, right next to Peter's Basilica, and get in there. It's a big, huge open area that can hold 10,000 people. And they're all in there waiting to see the different colored smoke. Okay, if it's black smoke, they took the ballots and burned them, but they pour in whatever they pour in that makes it black, which means there's no pope was found. Okay, when it finally comes out white smoke, that lets everybody know outside that a pope has been crowned. And then the pope comes out and they tell you who got crowned pope. Okay? But that's the kind of things that's going to go on, the pomp, the circumstance, everything that's going on, it awes John. Okay? And look what the angel says. And the angel said unto me, wherefore dost thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman and the beast that carrieth her, which hath the 7 heads and 10 horns. Okay? So he's actually going to explain this to us. Okay? And here we go in 8. The beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit and go into perdition. And they that dwell on the earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they beheld the beast that was and is not and yet is. This is why I say, remember I brought before in 13 that the government organization is going to be a reestablishment of the great Roman Empire, okay? Because it was, okay, and then it passed away. 1,483 years the Roman Empire ruled the world, okay? And then it passed away. When Rome was sacked by the final time, and they took all this thing and took prisoners out of Rome, and we fell into what's known as the Dark Ages, because there was no absolute control anywhere until we started having kings in different countries and things of that nature. And we went through the Dark Ages, which lasted 1,000 years, okay, before finally there started to become some semblance of order in the world, okay? All because the Roman Empire was gone. Okay? And this beast, I believe, is the Roman Empire. It was, it's gone, and now it's back. And how did it get back? From the depths of hell. Okay? The Antichrist brings it back. Somehow they unite those countries around that area and it becomes a new Roman Empire. And it's all those countries there, Turkey, all those areas around the Mediterranean are going to become a great power in the world, and they're going to be that's what they're going to be. Now, verse 9. And here is the mind which hath wisdom. Okay, he's going to tell us what this is. The 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth. Okay, so even now it's showing us that it's the beast is what she's sitting on. It's what props her up. And the 7 heads are what? 7 mountains. We'll get back to that. Near the end of the chapter today, I want to show you something about that I used way back when I was doing a study on Revelations in my work. Me and a buddy started having on our lunch thing just reading the Bible and talking about it. And it became kind of a study. Okay? And of course, some of the other guys heard that we were doing it or heard us doing it. And finally, one of them, a Catholic guy that I know, said, can I come and do this too? And I said, sure. More the merrier. We don't care. I looked at JJ, said, and Jay said, no, sure. Okay. Well, next thing we know, we had 5 or 6 other new guys sitting around the table with us, listening to us discuss the Bible. Okay. Well, of course, after we got done with, I like to do Galatians, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, because those are the books that Paul wrote that tell us about what we as Gentile Christians are supposed to do. And we only got through Galatians because the minute we got through Galatians and these new guys came in, and most of them were Hispanic Catholics, the first thing they wanted to do was study Revelations. I don't know why Catholics have a crazy what-you-call about that, but I did when I was a Catholic too. But they wanted to study Revelations, so I looked at JJ and said, it's all right with you? And he said, yeah, we went through Revelations. And I told them the same thing I'm telling you here now, that this new government is going to be a restoration of the Roman Empire. And we'll get back to that. We'll talk about that, what they said and what happened. Okay? And it says the 7 heads are 7 mountains in verse 10. And there are 7 kings. 5 are fallen, and 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space, 3.5 years. Okay? And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition. Now, 11 is talking about the beast as the Antichrist, not the whole government, And as you see it, he is not, he is the 8th. In other words, the beast was and is not. It's talking about his government, okay? But now it is, and he's the 8th, and of the 7, and goeth into perdition. He's originally there as of the 7, but then exalts himself higher and becomes who he is. So he's already on the scene doing some things that he's doing, but he isn't set himself up as the Antichrist yet. It's only after we get taken out that suddenly things happen that he gets exalted and has enough power now through this European Union, this renewing of the Roman Empire, that he can turn to Israel and promise them 7 years peace if they sign a peace treaty with him. Now, he promises them peace, and they take it. 11. And the beast that was and is not, we already went to perdition. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as yet, okay, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. In other words, he makes some sort of pact with them, these other kings. They're not kings yet, and he sets them up throughout that Roman Empire as kings. They have as much power as kings, okay, but they have it only because of him. Okay? Only because of the power they have through the beast, through him, they have this. And now, 14, it starts going into the next 3.5 years, because it talks about they make war with the Lamb as he's returning and all that. So we're not going to look at that today. Okay? We're going to stay clear of that, because we're not going to go in and study that until next time. Okay? Or until we're done studying the first 3.5 years. But I want to get back to my discussion with you and how I say that this is going to be a renewed Roman Empire. Okay? And how do I know? Because it says that the beast is described as sitting on 7 mountains, okay, and has 10 kings. Okay? But it's that 7 mountains that's important. Okay? I told the guys, like I said, when I was at work, I explained that same thing and said, see, the new what's called is going to be a regeneration of the Roman Empire. And when we got done studying just about what we're studying here, they asked me, Ron, how can you be sure of that? Come on, it's just your interpretation. I said, no, it's not. They said, well, what do you mean? I said, and I tried to think of a way I could show it, and I'm going to use the same thing with you today. If you got your phone, pick up your phone, okay? Go to your Google app. Every phone has a Google app on it. Mine happens to be just a bar, and it shows me things I can either write what I want for Google to search for me, or I can touch that little microphone and say something in it, and the Google will go search it for me. So if you got your phone, okay, go to your Google app. Oh, wait for my wife to get hers because she's got hers on there to work. Go to your Google app. Okay, and in just a minute we're going to push that mic and we're all going to say the same thing into our phone. And what we're going to say is, what city in ancient times sat on 7 mountains? Because that's what they're saying. This thing sits on 7 mountains. Okay, so remember, we're going to push the little mic. We're going to say, what city in ancient times sat on 7 mountains? Now, there's thousands of cities in ancient times. The Greeks.
Wouldn't it be country?
No, what city?
Okay.
Because it's like just a city. Even though they were city-states at the time. They were cities, but they were like a whole country, yes.
Okay.
But we're going to ask for the city. Now, it could say Greece. It could say Sparta. It could say Troy. It could say, oh, there's hundreds of thousands of cities in the ancient world. We just want and all we're telling you is it sits on 7 mountains or hills. But we'll say mountains because that's what it says in the Bible. So are you ready? We're going to push the button and we're going to say, what ancient city sat on 7 mountains? Get it? What ancient city sat on 7 mountains?
Sat on 7 mountains.
The ancient city of Rome was built on what are known as the 7 hills. These 7 hills, forming the heart of the ancient civilization. These hills are referenced in classical literature, historical texts, and even the Bible.
What are you all getting? Okay, what are we all getting? Rome. Rome was known as the city on 7 hills or 7 mountains. Rome. Okay, so when they describe a city in the Mediterranean, okay, coming from that area, that sits on 7 mountains, it's Rome. It's the only city it can possibly be. So what is this empire? It's the Roman Empire reemerging. It was here, it was gone, it has been gone thousands of years, and it reemerges, this Roman Empire. That's all I got for this week. We'll see you next week. Have fun and God bless.